Freeman,
Yes.
Omobian,
Here.
Malik,
Here.
Baylor,
Here.
Lombardo.
Here.
All committee members are present.
Very good. Before we begin, I need to remind everyone, I do need a motion to suspend all council rules that require contemplate in-person meetings and in-person voting. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. All right. Motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting, please.
So
So
moved.
move. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Like sign. Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, several items here. Our first item is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contracts with Ordinance to purchase VMware NSX and vSphere licensing and support and declaring an emergency. Who will be speaking for us today?
I'll be speaking about this, Mr. Chairman. This is Steve Fricker, Director of Finance. So this particular piece is part of our overall server upgrade project that we're doing this year that we budgeted for in the capital budget. This specific piece is software that will manage the servers that we buy. So we're buying a bunch of new servers and we'll ultimately have about 12 different physical servers. This software will take those 12 physical servers and turn them into over 200 virtual servers. So as you're aware, the city has a very complex network infrastructure. As I said, we have over 200 servers that we operate throughout the city. So this software facilitates deploying those different servers out to the departments that use them. So we're actually purchasing this software through Ordinance, which is actually the state of Ohio. So we're getting state contract pricing on this. Ordinance is also our internet service provider, our primary internet service provider. So we're purchasing this through state contract, and the cost will be about $117,000.
Thank you. Any questions or comments first from committee members?
Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Malik.
Thank you. Mr. Fricker, I know that, this is part of a broader effort to, increase our security from an IT perspective. And that this also was, part of this was also bringing aboard new folks this year as budgeted. And I know some of that was impacted by COVID, and just could you speak to what impacts COVID has had on our overall IT strategy?
Right. So we are, in terms of the network infrastructure purchases, we are pretty much continuing as we intended to at the beginning of 2020. We felt that was a very high priority to modernize our network infrastructure, make it more secure. So we've been working on that throughout the year. We are beginning to make those investments in our server platform. In terms of the personnel, we have implemented a number of personnel requisitions. So we originally intended to hire 9 people. I think we scaled that back by 2 people. So we currently have 7 personnel requisitions within our IT department that are being processed right now. So we scaled it back a little bit due to COVID, but we feel like, especially with COVID, this is an important priority to invest in with so many people working from home and using our network in ways that have never been used before. These are critical investments that we make in our IT infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Fricker.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Linda Omobian. Mr. Fricker, can you talk about, I know software lasts, by the time we get it, it's probably outdated. Is there anything built into the contract that would give us some automatic updates with the state, or?
My understanding is this is kind of a subscription-based platform. So We are entitled to updates as they come along. So it's not, something that becomes obsolete very quickly. We would install this and then we do get access to upgrades as they come along.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from committee members or from other members of council that may be with us? All right, I would be looking for someone to offer a motion for suspension of the rules.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Very good. Thank you, Mr. Fricker. Our next item is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts for property insurance policy to insure against any loss or catastrophic event that would cause damage to the Ohio Canal Interceptor Tunnel and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as the legislation talks about, this is property insurance for the Ohio Canal Interceptor Tunnel. So during the construction phase of the tunnel project, we had a builders at risk insurance policy that basically insured against any type of damages or any type of accident that would have happened during construction on the tunnel. Now that the tunnel is complete, that policy will lapse and we need to put in place some property insurance. As you know, this was an over $200 million project. So we're going to put some insurance in place that if there was a large event that caused damage to the tunnel, we would be insured against that damage. So this policy will provide $65 million of coverage with a $1 million deductible, and the premium will be about $96,000 for the first year of the policy.
Very good.
Mr. Freeman.
Ms. Amobian?
Mr. Fricker, I don't know if you can answer this or somebody may be able to. What do we anticipate if anything goes wrong with this? What are we talking about?
Yeah, so the policy insures against flood, which would be kind of an unusual event given that this is a tunnel that is designed to flood with millions of gallons of water. But, if there was some type of erosion of the, somewhere around the tunnel, it would cover that. It would cover any kind of earthquake damage. It would cover, if there was some type of, explosion or something like that within the tunnel. So it's, these different types of losses have all been included in the coverage under this policy.
Now, who would have something similar to this that I wouldn't think that we were the first one to have this kind of huge tunnel.
If I could jump in here, sorry, Councilwoman, DC has like 37 of them. Columbus has a couple. Cleveland has one. A lot of the consent decrees, about 700 of them, I think almost half have tunnels. So it's kind of a burgeoning business, and there's probably not a piece of equipment or person or building that is not insured in the city. At least I hope not.
That is
got to coverage everything. And this is hopefully our first and only tunnel, as we're working on another modification to that consent decree, and we won't need more of that, but it's just insures in case something does go wrong. It's insurance. We're just trying to mitigate risk, but other cities have them, and I've talked to other communities about what they have for those. Cleveland's is bigger, DC's is bigger. Ours it's not small by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not necessarily the biggest on the scale either.
So deductible is $1 million.
Yes,
we would anticipate that we could not repair it for paying less than that. I guess we can't.
The idea is to insure against a very large catastrophic event, so something that would take the tunnel out of service, that would be tens of millions of dollars to repair.
Mr. Fricker.
Mr. Fricker, just we're not talking about any mechanical issues that would arise. We're talking about catastrophic failure.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And the reason why we are getting a separate policy is just due to the unique nature of this particular asset that the city has built. So it doesn't really fall under any of our existing policies. So we needed a special policy due to the high value of this asset and its unique operation.
Good, thank you. Any other questions or comments? So I'd be looking for a motion for suspension of the rules.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. All right, very good. Our next item is an ordinance authorizing the clerk of the Akron Municipal Court to enter into a contract without the formality of advertising for bids with MAPSYS Incorporated for the purposes of purchasing a used Power 8 survey with related licenses and service for the Akron Municipal Court's IBM Power 720 server relocation project, approving the specifications therefore and declaring an emergency. Mr. Larry, are you going to be addressing us on this?
I think I will. I'm not sure if Montrella Jackson is on this call or not. If not, I'll go ahead and proceed. This was actually a joint venture between the judges and myself. It was actually initially proposed by the judges, and I came on board with it after reviewing it. And it's come about because of reviews by our system that recommended that we move our entire hardware and software operation for our computer system down to Involta. This is kind of the final step to do that. Our current system is over 10 years old and it's on its last leg. And so this is to purchase a used hardware, a similar system that we have now, but we'll have all the upgrades of our software that we need that we haven't really kept up because we thought we were moving to another system entirely. So this will get us current on everything we need to be current on and give us more security and a sound environment as far as power and temperature and things that we've been recommended to move our structure all down to Involta. So it's basically a 3-year plan. And when we looked at a number of different options, the one thing when we looked at just moving what we currently had down there, they couldn't guarantee that the system would fire back up because it's so old, and to move it was a high risk. So this way we can set up with the same kind of system. It is a used system that's been rebuilt, has a warranty. We're covered through the 3 years that we're talking about, and we really can do it for about the same amount of money as trying to move our old system down there. And actually probably less because we didn't even get the moving costs because the company didn't want to do it because they couldn't guarantee that it would start back up once they moved it. So it kind of meets with all the requirements that we should have nowadays to protect the integrity of the hardware and the system itself from potential outages. We've actually had 4 outages over in this building in the last 4 to 6 months. And every time it's been an issue whether we even fire back up. So it's basically a safety precaution to protect the integrity of our system and get us by until we can fully move into a new cloud-based system down the road that we're right now in negotiation with to get a contract signed. We're down to the part where we're looking at the statement of work and some other things that we've had people looking at. So I'd open it up to questions.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Amobian?
Mr. Larry, during the budget hearings, there was a discussion about something the judges wanted that was so outdated. Does this address that problem? And I can't remember what it was exactly.
No, this basically maintains our current operation and secures it from potential disaster. We're still moving forward with that plan, but that's at least probably 3 years out or longer before we can be fully operational under the new plan, because it takes at least 18 months to possibly convert over. And even then, it's probably at least another year that you'll have to run joint systems to make sure everything switches over okay. So we need to make sure that we protect the integrity of our current system so it doesn't falter and we don't have proper coverage to keep it running. So it's a stopgap proposal. And when we looked at the overall cost of all the options we had to get it securely functional down in Volta, this really worked out to be the most economical and cost-effective way to do that.
This is Montrella Jackson from Akron Municipal Court. I would like to thank Ken Klicka as well. He assisted us in reviewing the proposal so that it was consistent with the city's IT plan as well. And Councilwoman Amobian, just to follow up on your question. So this is the server that maintains the case management system for the 40,000 or so cases per year. So in that regard, the system that the judges were asking about was the replacement of the existing case management system.
I see. Thank you very much.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
just to follow up on Councilwoman Amobian's question, to either you, Mr. Larry, or Ms. Jackson, I know that there was, as Ms. Amobian mentioned, considerable discussion about the case management system. And I imagine that those issues are only magnified by COVID-19. I believe there was discussion about selecting a case management system and software this year. Is that currently the plan? And what would the timeline be for implementing it? Because if it sounds like that's going to be another 3 years before that can be implemented, that is concerning.
I can speak to that. This is Montrella Jackson. So we are very far along with reviewing proposals for replacement of that. It is actually an 18-month implementation plan for most of the proposals we are reviewing. But we are far along with that. Also, we have a grant from the Ohio Supreme Court, which we received earlier in the year. So we are still on track to move forward with that process. And hopefully in the next couple of years, we will have it in place.
So just to follow up, do we intend to select that system this year?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. Any other questions or comments? Looking around to see and make sure I'm not missing anyone. All right. With that,
I'd like to make a motion for a suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Laria. Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Committee.
Okay, we have item number 4. This is an ordinance adopting Title IX General Provisions, Chapter 105, Public Art Program, establishing the Public Art Program, authorizing the Akron Art Master Plan, and declaring an emergency. Who's up first?
Well, let me kick it off. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know from the very beginning of when I started, one of the more frequent requests that come in, is that, and when it comes to art and, hey, Mayor, we need to use a wall, or we want to perform in this space, or there was really didn't seem like a general consensus or a plan. So one of the things that I wanted to do fairly quickly was, how about having the public involved, and how about having a plan to do that? And this is the result of that, of the last 1.5 year effort. Really, I think for the first time in my history, it could have been done before, but with a lot of help from, GAR Foundation and Knight and Arts Now. I can't thank Nicole and Morgan enough about leading these efforts over the last year of engaging the community. If you look at that list of people that were on that community, I think we needed a public art commission so people can look at and have input to neighborhood art downtown, wherever it may be, but just have that input into it. And this establishes that. And so I think it was a tremendous amount of work that went into this. It was a goal of mine to be able to get this done and then have it in place, but also have people's input into, what arts and culture look like, and celebrate, each and every neighborhood, all 24 of them, which were all involved. I think many of you were actually involved in some of the process too, and I appreciate that. But it's a lot of collaborative work. I don't want somebody saying to me, Mayor, what do you think of this art? Art is subjective. And so when you want to do that, I don't want to be the person to say, not that I can't pick something that I may like, but maybe it offends everybody else. But how about having a public art commission? Just like a lot of other things, we have commissions to decide things, and I thought this was important to celebrate those arts. And so I'll kick it back to James, but I appreciate your consideration. Like I said, a lot of hard work went into giving you, I think, a pretty polished, finished product. And looking at other night cities and how they do things, this was following in some of their footsteps too. And so this has been done before, and I think it's an excellent idea to be able to, number one, promote arts, but also get that collaborative input from neighborhoods and from the community. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Hardy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's my distinct pleasure to finally bring to this council the resolution and ordinance that will effectuate the first ever Akron Cultural Plan. So just briefly, I want to introduce some of the folks that you may hear from today. So from Arts Now, we've got Nicole Mullett and Grace Myers. From Designing Local, which was the consulting firm that worked with Arts Now in the city, we have Josh Lapp. And where are you, Amanda? There she is, Amanda Golden. We also have Dre Evans to give the perspective of a local artist and what it was like to participate in the process, what we're hoping to come out of it, etc. And then Summer Hall, whom I know all of you know, who I'm happy to say will be joining the Office of Integrated Development from the Mayor's Office to work in part specifically on implementation of this plan and in staffing the Public Art Commission. So just briefly, and I'm going to turn it over to Nicole to go through a few slides, and then we'll get to Q&A as quickly as we can. As the mayor said, this is the first time in our history that the city has engaged in a true citywide cultural planning process. This is essentially a strategic plan for arts and culture, which I know many of you know is a huge piece of not just our community, but our economy. We had planned on bringing this to you earlier in the year. I know Nicole has met individually with all of you, but COVID-19 and the response effort really took up a lot of our time, understandably. And now more than ever, a plan of this nature and the implementation that will come of it is needed to make sure that this critical piece of our economy stays strong. So as the mayor said, with support of all of these partners, we went through a 2-year community engagement process to bring you this. That included engagement across all 24 of Akron's neighborhoods. It's incredible, and I know I'm stealing some of our thunder, but we logged 639 hours of community engagement. And I'm sure all of us would say that that's probably just a drop in the bucket, but it's pretty incredible given the amount of things going on in the world over the last couple of years that we were able to bring this to fruition. So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole now to go through a little bit of the high level, but then more specifically the 10 strategic priorities, of which public art is one. And that is the one that the city is most responsible for. Once she's done, I'll talk a little bit about the ordinance itself, what it does, what it doesn't do, how we're funding public art, etc. So Nicole, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Nicole, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I appreciate being here with you today, and I certainly appreciate all of your voices that were involved in this from the onset. So I really do thank you for helping us to shape not only the plan itself, but the work of the plan, which I think is unique and something we're going to cover today. So I'm going to go through a couple slides for you that are aesthetically pleasing solely because Morgan Lasher did them for us. So let me figure out how to move you over here. All right. So Akron Cultural Plan, this is, as you all know, and forgive me for restating, it's the first time in the history that Akron is engaged in something like this. And I think that it is uniquely Akron in the way that it came together. The community really came out for this and wanted to showcase all that we have and what we might be and how we might get there. We had a really strong idea from the onset, and I need to figure out how to move you. Hold on one second, guys. Sometimes technology wins in spite of my best efforts. All right. One of the things that we heard loud and clear was that this process needs to be governed in a way that is equitable and that takes everyone's voice into account. And that in some cases, that means a greater intentionality around equity. And so we, from the onset, designed the process to reflect the wishes. And I want to again thank council for really championing that and pushing that forward and making sure that we were going to be held accountable to that. And I know several times, many of you checked in multiple times over the year. And I, again, thank you not only for ensuring that the folks in your wards came out to participate, but also making sure that we were being held to the standard that you helped us determine in the beginning, and that didn't lax as time went on. So when we met with all of you for interviews in the very start, we met with hundreds of people, artists, community members, faith leaders, all sorts of folks to help us determine how we wanted to go about this work. What we know that Akron is unique. We know that there are best practices, but we wanted to make sure that we really captured Akron's vision for future. And so we wanted to ensure that the process that we used was appropriate. So these were the guiding principles that you all and that residents of Akron helped us come up with. And I won't read them to you, but I do think that it speaks to our community's passion for the arts and the fact that we are a place that is affordable for artists to make work. And I have to give a quick shout out to Dre, who is teaching the next generation of young artists. If you look behind him, his kids are creating as we speak, which is a testament to how much we believe that in the future of the arts relative to our kids. James touched on some of these numbers, but this is just a really quick snapshot of how we engaged. So we spoke with people, and you can see over 150 people representing organizations across the county, as well as the 31 people that are on the steering committee that the mayor referenced earlier. Total number of hours spent just listening. What we tried very hard to do was to make sure that ours were not the loudest voices. We were here to listen. That was our job, and to try to reflect back to the community through all 5 public review sessions. Is this what you've told us? Does this reflect your feelings about art in Akron? Is this what you want? Is this what you need? At the end, we ended up with 10 key priorities. The only thing that we put in an order in terms of importance was equity and accessibility. We heard loud and clear that sometimes those things tend to get tacked on to the end, and that's not the way that we want to do work in Akron. And so those were intentionally led the work, especially since we had right at 97% of people in Akron saying that we will not achieve a healthy and robust arts and culture community without equity being a priority. So we really appreciated that. So equity and accessibility, how we're making sure that our space is not just accessible, but truly welcoming to all people. Education, which Dre is single-handedly helping us with here, making sure that our kids have the ability to engage in art. Talent, making sure that we're supporting the artists that we have here and allowing them to grow and develop as entrepreneurs in this space, which Dre can certainly attest to. Engagement, making sure that the public feels that they have a role in arts and culture and that they're seen and heard in terms of what programming is offered. Resourcing, all of these things can't be done if we don't have appropriate resources behind them. Connections, we believe that art and culture is at its best when it's threaded throughout the community. And that section addresses that. Economic impact, placemaking, and finally, public art, which reflects the ordinance that you have before you today. So our next steps are set here. The next things we're going to do, we have the plan. We are developing an action plan right now so that you and the community can hold Arts Now accountable for the spaces that belong to us, that we can hold each other accountable as a sector and as community partners. And then there is also the piece certainly that the city would own relative to public art that we'll talk about here in a moment. And I'm gonna get into that. But I do think it's important to mention that at all times, this was intended to be a community effort. And so what we are not saying is that the city or Arts Now is going to own all of the things. We believe that it should be owned by the community, which is why the commission is going to be so important. That is us trusting residents to do what is best for their neighborhoods and their communities. And that's when I think we're at our strongest and our best. So I will pause there. And I think James is going to get in a bit more to the funding mechanism relative to public art.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you very, very much. I know you've done a ton of work here. And I heard you say hundreds of hours. I guess I was thinking probably thousands of hours, but thank you for what you've done. Mr. Hardy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just briefly to touch specifically on public art and the ordinance that you have before you. So really the 10th strategic priority that Nicole just went through really is the city's responsibility to implement. And we're excited to bring that to you today. And it's really implemented in the most tangible way through two specific things. One is how we're going to fund public art, and one is how we're going to manage the process through a new public art commission. So I'm going to start with how we're funding first. So there are lots of different ways that cities go about doing this. We investigated many of them, if not all of them, and had very robust discussions about what was going to make the most sense for Akron. And we ultimately came to recommendation of a 1% of TIF for public art program. And what does this mean? So as many of you know, one of the tried and true ways that we do economic development, particularly real estate development in Akron, is through tax increment financing or TIF. And so a lot of times what we do, right, is we negotiate a split of that revenue stream with the developer, the building owner, in order to make the project viable. But there's usually a stream that comes back to the city for things like public improvements, administrative costs, et cetera. And so we felt like this was a perfect place, given how strapped the city's capital budget is, how the city's operating budget looks, that this was a way to generate ongoing revenue for public art that the commission through the city could use in future years to commission new art, to maintain existing art, et cetera, that would not put the city in a financial bind. And so we did a little bit of an analysis based on our success in the last decade of producing new TIF agreements. So this is only on new TIF agreements starting this year going forward. And conservatively, by year 10 of implementation of this program, we anticipate a revenue stream for public art anywhere between $40,000 a year and $110,000 a year, depending on, of course, the number of deals we do, their size and scope, et cetera. So either way we slice it, that will be a significant ongoing revenue stream for public art. It also grows over time. In theory, real estate property values usually increase. We usually do more and more TIF deals as years go on. And so that revenue will be able to grow over time, as opposed to us being, again, super concerned about where it sits within the capital or operating budget. The second piece is the commission itself. And much like our other boards and commissions, what we're proposing here is to create a venue for our citizens to really drive the decision-making and the procurement and curation of the city's public art collection. And we really need to start thinking about it as a collection and not a series of one-off installations. And so we really worked hard with Arts Now, Designing Local, our law department, the mayor's office, and OID to really establish best practices based on other cities in the US on how to set up the commission and then what policies and procedures to use to make sure that we were transparent, equitable, and accountable for the things that we were going to accept into our collection, maintain, and even hopefully one day commission. So this particular board, there are two things I want to just briefly talk about that are slightly different from other boards and commissions. One is that obviously artists, we're going to have to curate the membership of the committee very carefully, because if you're an artist or you think you may want to seek a commission one day from the commission, you can't yourself sit on the commission, right? That's a conflict of interest. So we've put safeguards within the ordinance to make sure that we've thought that through. The second is that we went a step further than we normally do on geographic representation. no one ward can have more than half of the seats on the Public Art Commission. We want to make sure that we are as diverse as we possibly can in all respects in terms of membership on the commission. And of course, the process is the same as everything else. The mayor would submit a list of nominees, and the city council will accept or reject those nominees. And we don't have a list before you yet, because we want to allow people the opportunity to apply. So one of the things that we're going to be launching in concert with this approval, hopefully, is a new website where the plan will live, where the commission's work will be reported on, and it will also, in the interim, allow interested parties to apply for consideration to be nominated for the commission. And of course, we welcome, as always, any nominations from council as well. So, Mr. Chairman, if I might, I would love to give Dre Evans an opportunity just to talk from his perspective about this whole thing.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Hardy. And I have to say, Mr. Evans has the best backdrop of anyone here. I see those youngsters in the background. So I'm just wondering if that's staged, or is that just where you're living right now? It's just wonderful to see that. Thank you.
Yeah. This is not staged. My daughter over here been asking me to paint all day. This is what we do. Some of the paintings on the wall is by them as well. I've been teaching them since they've been born. I really believe in giving kids, an opportunity, just showing them a way. I used to wrestle back in the day, and the kids I used to wrestle knew how to wrestle since they was born. And so I figured I'd do that with my kids. So everything that I know how to do, they pretty much already know how to do. My oldest child, she's 9, she's 5, and I have a 3-year-old that's about to be 4 in July. So just with that, and also like the young kids that I encountered through the city, just impacting them through art. Right now, just through our times, art is just such a precious thing to have. How I know they painted the streets, but even with that, people came together, and I always seen that. It's like art is one thing where there's really no boundaries, and I just love it. So, and just working with arts now and the cultural plan, just seeing how the community came out and just getting their input on what they would like to see in the city and how much of a difference it would make. It was very impactful. I did a couple murals last year, and just seeing people when they come through the neighborhood, just saying great job, how much it makes the city feel better. Because I lost a family member over on Copley and Store. At the store, it's called Mr. Pantry, and so I donated my time to paint on that wall in honor of my cousin and also other kids that have trouble in that area. And since we've painted it, we called it Hope Healing Project. There hasn't been really any problems there. No one has tarnished it or put any like graffiti over it. Like, it's got respect. And just the impact it has is very impactful. So I really appreciate what Arts Now is trying to do with the cultural plan. And, in a lot of cities, even I know I'm an artist, when I go to different cities and see big murals, it does something to me, and I know somebody in here can feel the same way. So I really think that it'll be awesome. Not just murals, but dance, music, any type of art is definitely bringing a culture to the city.
Thank you so much, Trey. Thank you again. And tell those little girls behind, we'll expect to be seeing some good work out of them here in the future across our city. Mr. Hardy, did you have anyone else that you wanted to bring in?
No, sir. We're happy to take questions and answers.
All right. At this time, we'll begin with any members of the committee, questions or comments you might have, please.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes, Mr. Malik.
Thank you, everyone who's spoken. And, I think that this kind of undertaking is, really represents the best of what our city has to offer, which is, people coming together. And, the cultural plan which I've had a chance to go through the executive summary, but looking forward to going through the entire thing because, like the procurement report that was released recently, it is kind of a really thorough, detailed analysis of something and a plan for how to concretely tackle this. And so I really appreciate the work that has clearly gone into this, and both of those documents clearly focus on equity. And so just want to thank, Ms. Mullet and everyone else who's worked on this. And also really like the idea of, the tax incremental financing and establishing a specific funding stream that we know will be able to go forward. And so I just wanted to express that.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. Ms. Amobian, did I see your hand? You need to unmute, Linda.
I have all these gadgets and they're all confusing me. But anyway, I too would like to thank the committee. I did have a chance to meet with Nicole and learn more about art than I will ever know, I'm sure. I'm just curious, Mr. Hardy, the revenue stream, I guess this is probably just a start based on what we can afford. You anticipate 40-some thousand the first year or so, and it could go up to what are we thinking that we might be able to generate?
Sure. So it's going to be incremental for the first couple of years. I think that, and we've talked about this, that it's probably a good idea for the city in partnership with Arts Now Council and the Art Commission to seek some additional grant funding to plug those early years. Because the early years, as we sign up new TIFs, it's going to be small. But over the course of the first 10 years, so between now and 2030, by 2030, this TIF revenue stream should be spinning off between 40 on the conservative end to about 110,000 a year on the high end for public art specifically, that the commission can use, obviously with council approval, to commission new art. But of course, that does not preclude this council or the mayor from adding dollars into that pot, but at least it holds space for the public art that's separate and apart from the other things that we fund each year.
Okay. Thank you very much, because I did speak with Adele Roth about this. That is Adele's last name, isn't it, Roth?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I was thinking something else. Yeah, we talked about this briefly, and she was sharing with me. And you did say new TIFs, because so many of our TIF dollars are already committed for extended periods of time. And she was thinking that it could be small dollars, but again, it's a start. So I think that's helpful to know, and it will be a designated revenue stream. So good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Ms. Connor.
I just want to thank the committee, Nicole, and the Office of Integrated Development for working so hard to find this money. As a person who's done a number of public art in our neighborhood and in the ward, it's really, nothing motivates people, I think, more than public art. We're so starved for it in our neighborhoods that it's so refreshing to see it kind of start to happen. I've been a big advocate of the Philadelphia Mural Arts Program for a number of years and have watched them grow. And I only hope we can achieve at least 1/10 of what they've done. Public art is critical to our quality of life. And congratulations, Dre, on your piece of public art. I hope you continue to make as many as blank walls there are out there.
Thank you, Ms. Connor. I'll go to Mr. Fusco and then Mr. Swirsky.
I have to unmute it. Okay. I want to thank everyone for the entire team for all of their effort on this. And it's been a long journey too. I know about 1.5 years or so. So thank you. It's tremendous to see this. I do know that there's been an adjustment to the ordinance. I want to make sure that everyone on council has had an opportunity to see it. And Mr. Hardy, my question to you is there a rush on this? Can we is that okay? Like a week's time?
Totally the committee's purview. That's fine. We want to make sure that everybody's enthusiastic about this for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I'm hoping that everyone is on council. It's unanimous, but was just going to ask if the consideration for time would be given just in that the newer piece, which I did see that kind of defines the membership a little bit more, fine tunes that, is able to be reviewed by all, and that we have alliance with everyone. But again, I applaud everyone's efforts. This is great to see this moving forward. Thank you.
Mr. Swirsky? Unmute. Mr. Swirsky, unmute.
Okay. Well, I probably should just say, wow, and leave it at that. But I think I want to define that a little better. I just want to thank all the people for their talent. Thanks for contributing, your professionalism, and some remarkable persistence at taking, kind of like an idea in the sky, a rainbow, and bringing it down here to earth, and making it happen. And I think it would be wise for us to not just grab the rainbow, but just make sure we feel good and we're comfortable with every single part of this, because the ongoing process, which the commission will sort of monitor, implement, we want to make sure it's as good as the start that you've already generated, and a few more eyes looking at it. There's already been an awful lot, I know, but a few more eyes. Give us a week. We might have a few things to say. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Swirsky. Any other comments? Yes, Miss Baylor.
I just want to say I wasn't here at the inception of this program or this initiative, but it's a wonderful initiative to have. We all know, I believe, that how arts affect just the human heart and the human being, to see color, to see expressions that are coming from arts and different things, even the dance and singing and everything. The arts are something that uplifts the spirit of people. And I just think this is a great initiative. I mean, I even felt different just driving on Howard Street, after they had painted and on the street. It does wonders for the human soul. So I just thank all those that are involved in this, and just hope that somewhere the students will be more engaged in it. I'm sure Mr. Dre has that in mind, and because it makes a world of difference in their learning and things like that. So I'm just really excited to see how all this comes out.
Thank you, Ms. Baylor. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Hardy, when would we begin? I know you said this is for future TIF projects. When would we be seeing the commencement of this?
So obviously we wanted to make sure that City Council was on board with everything. But we have had, even in the midst of COVID, we do have a few fish on the hook, as they say, that may generate new TIF agreements. And we have built in that 1% in those negotiations in anticipation of eventual passage. So I would hope that, before the end of 2020, we'll see our first, TIF agreement with this as part of it.
Very good. All right. Any other questions or comments? I'm looking around on my screen. I don't want to miss anyone. I guess just as I was thinking, over in Kenmore, we've kind of benefited. There's been some good things happening in our community that you really wouldn't think so much about, arts in our community. But we've seen, from the standpoint of youth, and I can't share the stories because they're rather personal, but we have seen some young people put their hands on something and all of a sudden they came alive. And well, you change a life like that by somebody putting their hand to something and creating. you're affecting generations. So, and I'm especially pleased with the timing. You know, maybe we'd have liked to have had this done, 6 months ago or whatever. Right now, our nation's having a significant conversation. Akron, I think, is kind of ahead of the curve here on some things. And I'm just really pleased that this is coming out right now. But we would ask if someone would make a motion that we could refer this and have a week to look at this.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to refer this item. All in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right, very good. Nicole, it's been fun just watching your grin as we've gone through all of this. Everyone, I can just see the joy on your face, and the folks that will be the real beneficiaries of this, probably a lot of them have yet to be born. And so know that you're investing in, you're not investing in today, you're investing in decades. So thank you for that. I encourage all the council members, if you would have any questions, Mr. Hardy, should they direct those to you, or would there be another individual we would be best direct those questions to?
I think if you can reach out to either Summer or Nicole, and then we can get those answered really quickly.
Okay, very, very good. All right, we have one more item here, and this would be a resolution expressing support for the Akron Cultural Plan and adopting the Akron Public Art Master Plan and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Chairman, same presentation. I think the only thing I would add is, again, the sense that I think everyone on council is getting, that while the public art piece is ours and we're responsible for it, this is much bigger than us as one institution. And it's really it's going to be incredible to see how the Akron Public Schools adopts, different pieces, how our other cultural institutions adopt various pieces. And then also, hopefully, the whole goal is to have more opportunity for more artists in Akron to show their love for the city. So this resolution is really more of a general expression of support for the overall plan, as well as what we have in it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Malik.
Sure. I just, want to say that we, as this plan is released, we all have the opportunity to share it and be advocates for it going forward. And I know that we want to make sure to dot our I's and cross our T's on the ordinance that we're going to implement. But I don't know that there is any need for that kind of time on this piece, because we all appreciate the work that has been done by this committee and are thankful to them. And so I'd like to make a motion for approval with suspension of the rules.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion before we vote? Okay, we have a motion for suspension of the rules. All those in favor, please let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Very good. We will see that that's passed out this evening. And I do not believe that we have anything else to come before us, but all those beautiful faces on the screen right now that I'm seeing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we look forward to some wonderful things. I hope I get to live another 40 years to see all the impact. No, that's not going to happen, but I'm just looking forward to the impact that this is going to have on my community, on wards across the city. Thanks to each and every one of you for your labor of love. And with that, we will adjourn this meeting at 3:54. Thank you so much.